Hey, welcome everyone, both playing, those that are here as well, present, and those that are watching us through our YouTube channel. Today we will discuss about dueling no more. You may be asking, so why we are discussing this as a spiritist talk? Well, because this is a topic that is very common, probably not the way the word dueling was first introduced to our society, and this is long time ago, right? So this type of practice was very common, you know, and it has to do with the honor of the person. The person feels offended, so and pride, and so they will like challenge the other person. But so let us see what we learn with the Spiritist teaching about this type of practice. So there is a couple of questions. So we know that nowadays we don't have this type of practice anymore because we have evolved. Our laws has somehow change, and we are not allowed to challenge other person and kill the person or be killed, right? Depends how skilled you are, there is a chance that you can be killed, right? So we gonna bring some informations from the spirit teachings, from the gospel according to spiritism, as well from the spirit's book. Very enlightened question that Kardec asked the noble spirits, and we're gonna discuss and address this point. And the idea is for us to look at ourselves and identify if we are still doing that, right? So put this in the back of your mind and let us uh, dive in on this topic of dueling. That's why the title over there is Dueling No More. So let me see here. Let me see how I'm gonna. Okay, so okay. In the Spirit's book, the part three of the Spirit's book, we find in the law of destruction, try to coordinate here, um, a couple of questions about the topic of dueling, right? So this in the part three is related to the moral laws inside of the law of destruction. And also in the gospel according to Spiritism, we find in the chapter 12, entitled Love Your Enemies, this topic of dueling. In fact, is a message from a bishop about this type of practice that was very common in, in the 17th, 18th century. So we're gonna look at on those questions and also um, reflect. Is this something that is in root in culture, or is in root in ourself as a spirit? So because once we identify that, doesn't matter what time we have lived. If it is now, if it was in the past, we are still display this type of practice in our life, right? So So if we go back in the 17, 1800, in 18th century, we're gonna see that this practice was pretty much done with swords, right? Was very common, was cheap. Yeah. In that time, firearms was not something available to everyone. But then as we advanced in the 18th and 19th century, we see that this changed from swords to using of pistols, because it was a tool that became more common among special men, right? So this is like main things, right? So this type of practice was somehow accepted by the society, right? So you felt offended and someone was denigrate your honor, so you challenge that person, even if it was true or not. If you felt that you were um, offended by someone, your honor, your character was diminished. So society in that time, in the 17, 1800, we talk about a couple hundred years ago, right? We're not talking about millennials. Millennials ago was even worse, right? But we are looking this type of practice and try to identify the root of this, right? And society was okay with that, right? Um, so if we basically, as we mentioned in the beginning, has to do with the offenses and satisfaction. So you feel that you're offended, so you need to fulfill, you need to pretty much, um, i- i- you know, put things in a way that, okay, this is not true, so let me take the law with my hands and make justice, right? So basically, is a do is a lead is as we put it here, the traditional situation that led to a do often happen after offense, whether real or imagined. Right? One party would demand satisfaction from the offender. Imagine how many cases of duel happened that was not based on true things, right? Because maybe person A didn't like person B, go to person C and said something or create a story, you know? And then the person C feels offended and challenge the person A because person B decides to create a situation. So we see that this was very common in that time. And how many lives was took, right? So when we look at in the spirits literature, especially in the spirits book, in the Gospel Across to Spiritism, and even like what Emmanuel or the enlightened spirit like Joanna Judge, what they think about that. So, and we're gonna bring some of their view on this topic of dueling, and then we're gonna move on to today. So, how we can identify those type of practice that we still have. So, this is in the Spirits magazine, November 1862. We see that Kardec mentioned about duel. Kardec says the duel is a grave crime because it is not only a suicide, but also a premeditated murder. Do you guys like those two cats over there? Ready to fight? Each one with their pistols in their hand. So, two things that we can look at here: suicide and murder. So, for example, if you if you in that time, of course, if you don't have the skill, for example, if you are not skillful in use the pistol or the sword, and you go to challenge someone because you feel offended, it's like commit a suicide because you're not gonna. There is a chance, a huge chance that you're not gonna win that battle, right? And for those that is skilled and challenge someone that was weak, he knows that he's gonna kill that person, right? And for that person that was more skilled and engaged in duels, in duels, that person is committed suicide before the spiritual understanding about this type of practice, right? So in the Spirit's book, question 757, and this is inside of the law of destruction. That is a part that just talking about Kardec asked about this type of threats that happened in that time. Kardec asked this question: can dueling be considered a case of lawful self-defense? I feel offended. I need to defend my honor. So I challenge the person, right? And here's the answer of the Enlightened Spirit. Oops, sorry. No, it's not self-defense. It is a murder and an absurd costume worthy of barbarians. In a more advanced and moral civilization, people will understand that dueling is as ridiculous as the combat of antiquity that were regarded as the judgment of God. So if you go in the ancient time, this type of practice was the understanding of mankind in that time is that this type of practice was a blessing by the creator. That was the God's will, was a judgment of God. So this is the way that we human beings try to understand God. Because we don't know the nature of God, we project how you understand our laws, right? So, and of course, people that's more educated and skilled, they can use this to dominate the masses, right? So they even attribute those type of um, um, threats as if it is a judgment of God. So then Kardec continued to question after 759. Kardec asked, in dueling, what is the value of what is called the point of honor? Because that is pretty much the person is doing, right? Is defender their, his or her, majority of the time was men that used to do. I mean, in history, I don't know any like famous case that was women engaged in dueling. I mean, it was all the type of confrontation. But guys, yes, guys, especially husband, you know, fathers, they are the one that will defend the honor of their family, the name. Yeah, exactly. Yes. So, and the answer is that of pride and vanity, two sort of humankind. So the root of this type of threats is pride and vanity. Pride because you feel offended. So pride is that feeling that we are better than the other person. This is pride. I'm better than you, so I need to show you how things work. I have the my point of view is better than your point of view. So those type of situations, this is pride, right? We are not talking about the pride that people say, "Oh, I'm prideful for my country," for example. It's not like that, but it's a pride that puts someone else or a culture or you know a population beneath, and you put yourself above, right? So then, based on this question, so we see that this practice of dueling has to do with pride and vanity, um, can be considered a suicide action, also can be considered murder. Depends which situation you look at for this type of practice. So, but the question now is, Daniel, nowadays we don't have this type of practice anymore. So, do we still carry this type of tendency? Of course, right? We don't need even to speculate too much. We see how our society is. It's a very divided society, right? Right now. So it means that the two sides is dueling all the time, right? And here is something very interesting because in the question, um, in the footnote of the question 757, there is this footnote um, that says that we continue to practice a more subtle form of dueling nowadays in our daily lives by using words and other antagonist attitude that are just as destructive. So we put word because it's the more effective mean of communication that we have, right? I mean, we have different means of communication, but they say other antagonist attitude, and then can be like even not use word, we can be dueling, right? Because the word is a consequence of our thoughts. So everything originates in the core of the spirit. So we are the one that create this, and we can create this to divide, to justify our honor, to justify our point of view, and we forget that we are creating a situation that does not go to the same direction of what we learn with our modern kind, right? Daniel, it's very easy to say that, right? Yeah, it is easy to say. It's very difficult to put in practice. Why? Because we need to look at first, we are humans. We are not angels. We are humans, right? And we are here to learn how to one day become an angel, right? To become a pure spirit. So it is okay that we are in the process that we have different point of view. And that's the beauty of our society. We can have different point of view. We can disagree. what we cannot do is commit murder and suicide. Not the murder of the physical body, not the suicide of like hurt our life, but it's the murder of our relationship, the suicide of our relationship. And we see this all the time. The fact that I can disagree with you doesn't mean that I'm not gonna respect you, that I'm not gonna talk to you. We disagree. It's normal. We have this in family all the time. So spirits come to tell us and that there is a fact, and we are human. We are in the process. And then we take those information that the spirits bring to us and use to our evolution, to our betterment, right? Without create problem that will hunt us in the long term, right? So and we see that this picture over there, like is kind of a representation what we have understand by this modern dueling, right? Now let's go back and look at what Emmanuel, the spirit Emmanuel, says about this topic. There is a couple of messages in the books that Chico has psychographed. And but I found one that is in the book Canais da Vida. So I would say if we have to translate this, channels of lives. And this is a book that's not in English, but there is a chapter in that book that is exactly about dueling. So I didn't put the whole chapter. I just took like 3 or 4 paragraphs that I wanted to share with you guys here. And let's read what Emmanuel says about. He said, indeed, civilization has banned duels from public squares, and we no longer see drawn swords causing distress, injury, and death. Today, human laws repress, among the most educated society, similar manifestation of animality and savagery. However, if the blades rest entangled, the same does not happen with the poison dart of mental life. We often throw rays of disturbance and indiscipline, anguish and destruction in every angle of the road on which our lives move. These are the wild thoughts of the depressing psyche. So very deep here, because Emmanuel is saying that okay, we are not doing those type of practice that we were to, that our society used to do it 200, 300, 400 years ago. and and the reason for that is because we have evolved, our laws have changed, as Johnny has said, but we still using our mind. He says we still, he said, he cannot say the same does not happen with the poisoned darts of mental life. Daniel, put this in plain language. Example of this. Well, how many time, and I'm guilty of this, okay? So how many time we, for example, I'll give an example. We are watching news, for example, you know, and then we see something that we don't agree, right? And what is our position? We have that anger inside of us, right? So, and we start to like saying thoughts. We may not speaking. I mean, if we have like your companion, your spouse, the first thing you do is you engage in the conversation. Did you see this? And can you imagine how many darts we send to that person? Like, let's get like, example, like people that is in the movie industry, right? Hollywood, politicians, athletes, you know, especially like we soccer players, right? Oh my goodness, that could be. I mean, like, in and we watch news, right? We are in a society. We watch news. I mean, I watch the news. I watch sport news, and when we see the discussion, sometimes like I need to turn off because if you continue watch, you feel like that that emotion, like you blending with whatever the speaker is saying. So the opposite happened as well, because when we go to a spirit talk, when we listen something uplifting, we engage in that frequency as well, right? So so we need to really pay attention, and that's what Emmanuel is bringing here to us. Which moment we are contributing to send those darts. So we can make an analysis about the situation, but we can also try to apply what Joanna Judges always advises, that look, nobody's perfect. This person may have some type of, you know, behavior that's not according. So what do you do? Try to find good ones. That's the challenge for us, right? So to see good, to see also behaves that's not good. So we try to put this in a balance. Okay, this person is not perfect. He's doing things that's not right. But can we also identify in that person things that could be positive, right? But so what happened to us is that we get so like tunnel vision in one part of the person that we forget the whole person. And so I was talking to my wife the other day. We are this whole thing that was happened about the guy that escaped from the prison, and so the first impression is like, we wanted the person to be caught, right? Because he's dangerous to the society. He committed murder. He needs to pay for that, right? But then when you look at the mother, what the mother is saying, so we kind of like, oh my goodness, could be my son, could be your husband, could be someone from your family. How we conciliate that feeling that we see when you see something that is the opposite side. And that's the challenge. I think that's what Emmanuel is asking us to pay attention. How can we contribute for our society? What type of darts, mental darts we send when we see something that at the same point bring us that repulsion, and then we look the other side and bring some kind of compassion. I read what the mother of the guy that escaped told in the news in Brazil, and I felt like, oh my goodness, because at some point I was like, I hope this guy's gonna be caught, because he can kill other people, and in the long run of his evolution, what's gonna happen? He will be in debt with the divine laws. So it's better that he be putting aside and has his time than commit more crime, right? But in the other side, you see a mother that was suffering, you know, and we parent, we we resonate with that, right? Because this is something that can happen to any one of us. And how would you like other people to think about us? This is something that Joanna Judge always asks. When you put yourself to judge someone, try also to find other good quality in that person.
Before I forget it.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
This point I have talked to my parents.
Mhm.
My father said, if you commit a suicide, I mean,
Correct, murder.
right? Então, I will very sorry for you.
Yeah.
Santa, but I will support the justice.
No, no, yeah, that's true.
Okay?
That's true.
I will visit you in the jail. I will not put a hand on you.
No, no, we are not
Be
condoning.
careful, because nowadays we talk about the politics. I think you
Mhm.
try to get that we kind of that's silent
Yeah,
in order of the good.
yeah.
Jesus was be quiet.
No, no, we
But
should
if you
not.
remember, there is a passage in the
Yeah,
Bible. Jesus was give a talk in
yeah,
the synagogue. And there was a lot of people making money, right?
yeah,
The sidewalks. And Jesus was there. There was people. It was rude. He just make people get out. This is the
yeah,
sacred
yeah.
house. You know,
No, no. So it's
women
just
should be quiet when you see the
that's the challenge,
we
Luis.
talk
Yeah,
about
exactly.
Brazilian. No, we talk about. We
Yeah,
actually talking. It's Brazilian situation now.
yeah, yeah.
No, but there is a Brazilian, the guy that escaped is Brazilian, right?
Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's Brazil or not, but this is a situation that happens. Yeah, that happens all over the place. And I totally agree with you, Luis, because before murder, so murder is a crime before human laws and before God's law, and we should not condone. We should not condone. But That's why we have justice to do that,
The
right?
problem is there is no justice.
Our friend here mentioned about, his point of view about not being quiet, and we agree with him. We agree that, when something is not right, we should not cross our arm. But what Jesus is asking us, and this teaching of spirits is asking us, how are we going to behave, right? Okay, so if it is related to a situation that is political situation, we conquer the right to vote. And everyone has the freedom to vote and to put whatever you want in the power. Once the person is there, represent, so we should comply with the law, right? Even if we don't agree. I think what the invitation here, and Jesus very clear told us, give what Caesar and give what is God, right? So it's very important for us to pay attention to our feelings, and when we feel that our idea is not accepted, when we feel offended, so we need to do an internal analysis and see why I'm feeling like this, right? And I think I totally respect, our point of view. We are not here in the Spirit Center to discuss difference. We are here to try to find points that will put ourselves together as human beings. So by going back what the Spirit says, so this is not about Daniel, this is not about Aloysius, it's not about anyone here. This is about what the spirits brings to us. And this is a spirit center. We need to bring what his the spirits bring to us. If I put this in my daily practice, if you do that, good. If you don't, it's up to you. So we have this free will, if we may say, right, to make the decision that we want. But one thing that's very important for us is like watch how we receive things that we don't agree. This is very important for us because we are the way that we are nowadays, and we have here incarnate and discarnate spirit that may think the same that we, right? They may think that what we are doing is not the right thing, or what we are doing is hypocrisy, right? But we are trying. We are human beings. Nobody are in the position to judge and say you're right or you're wrong. The moment we do this, we wanted to be better. We want to be God, right? So the moment we judge someone, say this is wrong, this is right, there is something wrong because then we are just forget about ourselves and point out the problem that is outside. So, but let's move on and let us go to Joanna Jange. Let's see what Joanna Jange says. Not Daniel. This is in the book um, Jesus in Life. Jesus in Life. I don't think this book is in English, but she said there is a chapter about duelos contemporâneos, that's modern contemporary duels. And she said like this. Let's read. These mental duels sometimes explode into illogical discussion. We just have a discussion here, friendly discussion, right? In which aggressiveness opens the door to violence that is responsible for infamous crimes, all as a result of a moral inferiority of the litigant, of the two people in the party. So this is very important. This is not Daniel says. This is the spiritual junction. Say that the discussion that we have needs to be based in respect. We cannot disrespect each other in our discussion. The moment we put the other person down, is a disrespect. This is a spirit center. We need to respect the spirit center. This is a place that we come here. It's not my house, it's not your house. It's not. It is a place that we come here to put our mind in to read this message. It's like when we are hungry, so we go to a restaurant to eat, right? So to feed our souls. And this message is telling us, and we are all here guilty. Because how many discussions, in logical discussions we had? Nobody in this planet, nobody. Those that are watching us online, those that are in the street, how many times we be in a situation that's, oh my goodness, I should have not closed my mouth. If we recognize that we missed the point, good, because do a self-analysis. We feel that we are in a situation that we say, okay, I messed up. Let me go back and let me apologize for the person, or ask someone to, you know, to give me a second chance, for example. So Joanna mentioned here now that all this result of a moral inferiority of the parties, right? So we need to be very careful when we feel that our ideas are not accepted. We need really to be careful on that, because if we call ourselves Christians, if we call ourselves Spiritists, if we go to the synagogue, I mean, it's asking for us to really behave, to try to put that in practice. Because otherwise, we are not making any favor for that type of religion or philosophy that we are following. And Joanna continues to say, if someone acts badly toward you, continue contribute to their peace, and we will be able to nullify their unhealthy action. Very easy to say, right? Because what is the level of our evolution? What happened when someone act badly toward us? Majority of the time, we confront back. Our action is we react more than we act, right? And and this is something that is part of the current society. So the society is the way that it is, and the division and the polarization, because we are engaging so much in the mental dart, in the discussion, in logical discussions. And I totally agree with Luis. We should not be silent when things happen, but we need to be smart. You need to use our tools, our right, in the right way. Because for the moment someone confront you, is aggressive with you, and if you be aggressive back, you're in the same level. That's why when someone starts to talk and scream on you, the best thing is like, don't say anything. Because if you engage, what is the difference? There's no difference. So we all have been experienced the same situation, like that sometimes when someone scream on you, we scream louder, right? Because probably that day you are not in a good day. And that's something that, every time I drive and with my wife and someone do some bad thing driving close to me, so we always say, especially if you have kids in the car, this person is not having a good day. Maybe this person is not, is going to have a problem in their house. This show how much we are working ourselves, because the second that has happened, the first thing that comes to our mind is what? It's confrontation, right? We need to be very careful because we are not by ourselves. We have spirit. Um, we have, unfortunately, we have influence from those incarnate and discarnate that will contribute for those type of situation. So, finalize, Johnny said, or Joanna de Angelis, not you, John, Joanna de Angelis. Harmony, harmonize yourself, trust your friends, and excuse your enemies, not dueling mentally or physically with anyone. Well, it's easier when the person speak. For example, Luis just speak and he mentioned something here with us that he doesn't agree. That's fine. This is your opinion. This is not gonna change the way we see each other, right? But when the person speak and the person disagree, it's good because you see what the person is saying. Now, the problem is if Luis stay here the whole time, and if he at the end he starts to emit this dart and doesn't say anything and never give the sense to me how his position is regards to the situation, right? That's the danger, because how many times this happened in our workplace, right? In a spirit centers and in religion institution, how many scandal we see at home, in our own family, right? We may have in our families some people that doesn't like to talk too much, but the mind is like working 24/7, sending bad thoughts to someone in the family, right? And here is something very interesting that we never thought about. And then suddenly we start to feel sick. We don't find the cause. But our body starts to speak. Our body starts to speak. And the cause is our mind. And we start to do what? Take medication after medication after, and the disease doesn't go away. So is this God's fault? Is this my family fault? Is this the government fault? Or we generate that energy that first put us sick and also put the other person, the other sick. That's why we need always to have our gospel home, pray every day, because we don't know what people think about us, right? The type of mental darts that is sent. This is the modern duels that we have nowadays. And Daniel and Alba, Johnny, Luis, we are here. We are nobody, right? We are small people. Imagine those that is like in the higher position, that is like in the spotlight, that is on the media and the news all the time, and has millions of people drawing attention to that person. We should not be the middle of those millions. I don't care what political party you are. I don't care what you should act like when you see someone that, okay, I didn't vote that person, but is a son of God. Is a I, I'm not in the position to judge that person. The moment I do this, I want it to be better than God. So what do we do? Using Jesus' teaching, Spiritist teaching, let's use our tools. Is what? Our mind. And pray for that person. It's easy to pray for those that we love. I want to see you pray for those that you consider enemy. That is the challenge. That's what Jesus says. This um, topic of dueling is in the chapter of love your enemies. Nobody's saying here that's easy, but this is the proposal, right? This is the proposal. That's why we are talking about this dueling no more, because at the end of the day, continue with this type of behavior, we make us sick and sick and sick. Not the physical body, our mind. We compromise our relationships because of difference of opinions. And we may regret when the time of death comes, right? And we're gonna see this very soon. We almost finished. So pretty much nowadays, I mean, what we can see when we look at our society pretty much has these four things like honor, pride, revenge, satisfaction. That's very strong in our society. That is completely the opposite of Jesus' proposal. Jesus talking about humility, about forgiveness, about peace, and love our enemies. So you see the difference here. So the question that we need to ask, and this question goes to everyone present here, virtual, is like, which side of this you are? You are putting Jesus' propose, or you are go with the flow of the current society that we live? This is a question that we need to ask to ourselves. You don't need to answer, right? I need to also ask to myself. And almost finished, I wanted to bring this Paul's invitation, right? When he was almost like the last days of his life, he wrote a letter to Timotheus. This is in the second Timotheus. Oops, what happened? Okay. So, and he says like this, and this was the question that we need to ask. I have fought the good fight. I have fought the good fight. That's what we need to do it. And he said, I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Finally, there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the right judge, the Lord, the righteous judge, will give to me on that day, and not to me only, but also to all who have loved his appearance. So that's why we mention, we tell that we are Christian, we tell that we follow Jesus, we tell that we are Spiritists. But are we fighting the right fight, the good fight? And fight the good fight here. And so let's go back to the life of Paul, because he's a model for us. He was someone that believed that Christians were the false prophet that needs to be disseminated, right? Disseminate, right? He persecuted, he killed. The moment he realized that he was going the wrong direction, what he did, he changed his view. And what he did, he starts to do everything according with Jesus has taught it. He didn't walk with Jesus when Jesus was incarnate, but through the teaching passed from his disciple, and he reached a point that he said, it's not Jesus, it's not me that lives, it's not myself anymore, it's Jesus on me, something like that, right? So the question is, when we reach the last days of our life, we wanted to look at this and say, okay, I think I did most of the thing right. And let's God, our Master Jesus, or our good spirit to judge us, right? That's very important when we put ourselves in a position of judge others, because then we forget about us, right? And this is, I think, is a message. So if you have to translate this to what today, what Spiritism teaches, we would say that a dual, that we still need to have this type of practice, but we need to shift gear. Instead, someone else outside, we need to use this dual against our own imperfection, right? So that's what Paul is teaching us here with this message. A duel against pride, selfish, and vanity. An inner duel for our moral transformation. And that is the challenge, right? That is the type of duel, the modern duel that we need to work with. It's not, it's not confront other parties, other people, other culture. What I'm doing here to contribute for a better society. And because we all here have family, that is the main place that we can work. So if you wanted to see later, many years from now, a good society, right? So we teach our children, so we behave ourselves so we can become a model for them. And then we hope that they will, do the best that they can to have a better society in the future. To finalize, tips for avoiding or causing duels, right? Don't give the power to the offender. He feels to accept his or her offense. So one example of this. So that the offender is probably a sick, imbalanced person. So an example of this is like, don't get in the confrontation. Respect the other person, but you don't need to agree. Whatever I say, and Luis clear said, I don't agree with your point of view. That's fine. I respect that, right? I respect that. But he forgot that my point of view is not my point of view, it's the spiritist point of view. But I understand what he was mentioned because we have a conversation the other day and we disagree, right? Normal. It's very normal disagree, right? As long as we respect itself, one another. So, and I guess that part we are okay on that. Number two, if you are the challenger, try giving he or her a second chance by change your perception of the situation. We will always regret when acting in an angry state. And and here is something that I want to say: we are all human, and this happened to all of us. So if you give the right to be angry, so think that one day the other person also can be angry, and you need to give a second chance to that person as well, right? Third, observe yourself in all situations, especially regarding relationship. We are spirits in evolution, and we can suffering the influence from both incarnate and discarnate spirit. Cannot forget about that. That our behavior, our feeling can be potentiated by those that is also vibrating a lower frequency. And to finalize, pray and trust in God. Let us pray, let us trust in God, and let us, put ourselves in a situation that, since we are humans, we are not perfect. It is okay that sometimes we get upset, that sometimes we miss the opportunity. And the best thing is that if we find ourselves in that situation, that we are the challenger, in the case, if we are the one that confronts, that we can later, once we go to bed, we reflect upon. I should have done that different, right? And always there is a new day. And the new day is a new opportunity for us to, you know, do things different, right? Well, I wanted to stop here and see if we have any comment or question. Um, okay, so we have a question here. We have Paula, and I guess I cannot put over there in the screen. Let me see if I can do here. Just a minute. Let's see. Okay, so hmm, I want to put it this in the screen. Okay, okay. So okay, Paula says, okay, do at its simple level is a back and forth with someone. Yeah, I totally agree, Paula. Yeah, it is. It's back and forth with you know, and she's bringing this like in the modern type of dueling, right? So and this is something that happens a lot, especially like with social media, that people posting stuff and there is tons of comment, and sometimes through emails. Nowadays, WhatsApp and text message is a back and forth, is a back and forth communication. So also we need to learn how to say no, right? So if we identify that the conversation has become toxic, it's become like, if you see that there is no common ground, the best thing is like cut that, keep silence, don't engage, put in the forgetfulness of the past and move on, right? Also, she says here, enemies are for growth and friends for fun and explorations. Yeah. So we grow with enemies, right? Because pushers make us to make how we can do with that person. And either we build virtue or we completely like miss the opportunity, right, Paula? And thank you, Paula, for for your comment. Very helpful. Any comment here? Do you want to make a comment? No, you can speak louder over there. I think we can get from the microphone here.
Okay. At the beginning of the presentation, you mentioned culture.
Culture,
We're
yeah.
going to see if this is culture or something from the level of
The
the
spirit.
development of the spirit. That's so nowadays there are still cultures.
Yeah,
In the probably it's not dual, but it's this respect the honor of my family. So,
that's true.
if you dishonor my family, I have the obligation to go after your son, after your daughter, or to
Yeah.
kill so and so, or you need to give me your daughter, or there are real stories there.
Yeah,
Real
a
stories
lot
in
of, yeah.
Pakistan and Iraq, in so many
Even in South
countries.
America, I saw a case recently that a whole family was killed. You
Yes,
know,
or yeah, oh yes, or they're enslaved. They need
slave.
to
Yes.
serve the others because of an offense. So I understand that this is part of the evolution of the spirit, but if the person that grows in this type of culture is thinking or perceiving that the honor of his family has been tainted and he or she needs to take action,
Mhm.
this person is thinking is doing the right thing.
Yeah, and that show the level. Okay, so thank you for your comment. So Albert was mentioned about, that we still have a lot of, this type of dueling that happens in nowadays, and I agree with you. And maybe not using those type of practice, like there is a organization thing. So okay, I challenge you, I have a pistol or a sword. So because laws, human laws prohibit that, but it still happen on the ground, right? So and I think in that case, I think our justice law is trying to do the best. So I agree that our justice law is not the perfect. There is corruption everywhere because the corruption laws is made for man, that man is not perfect. If not perfect, the law is not perfect. That's common sense, right? So there is no perfect laws. We always have, how do you say, like flawless, not flawless. There is always, there is another name, loophole, loophole on the law, right? There is thing of the law that's not there yet because we, unfortunately, we are in the process. So when we look at that, there is two things we need to take in consideration. First, acknowledge that the level that we are, we still have those kind of things happen in a different way. The practice still happen. As the manual says, in a more advanced society, it's not acceptable, but doesn't mean that does not happen. And you're right on that happen. So the question is, how can we look at on that? We that doesn't agree with those type of behavior, we need to use our civic rights, right? That is, we vote, we engage in the society, we try to do things to change the law, right? But there is one thing that no matter how much perfect the law it is, it should happen because the cause of those things come from the spirit. So that's why I mentioned, doesn't matter if you are living the 1700 or in the 2022, if you have those inside of you as a spirit, the 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 feeling to defend your honor, you're gonna use the tools that in the society that you're living, right? And so, how many lives are destroyed by by social media, for example? Because sometimes you don't need to go over there and kill the person. You don't kill, and there is a culture nowadays of canceling. I'll cancel you, so you are out. And how many depression, suicide have happened because of that type of practice? We are using a modern tools to display what we have inside.
Daniel, I was referring to a case of a person
Hmm.
that learned
Learn.
that. It's
Hmm.
not like that. It's a person who is growing this emotion of being prideful, of vanity,
Hmm.
someone who grew up in a culture that is
That
telling
is
you, even if you don't feel it, that the right thing to do is making
make that film.
things right by damaging someone else.
Yeah.
You know?
So there is one thing that we call uh, resonation. Resonation, like when, for example, if I'm here and I'm start to make certain noise, so is depends how the level I am, I will start to imitate what you do. But I do this because either I'm below you or in the same level. If I'm more evolved, I'll look at that type of behavior and say, no, this is doesn't make sense. That's why um, there are people that are born in culture and break those type of tradition because does not make sense. you know so while you say yes, I the person can learn, yes, but that spirit, let's focus on that spirit. They are in the same level of evolution or a little bit below. And so if you start to make those type, so we are achieve like it's called resonation, synchronization. So you think that that's the right thing to do it, and I agree with you, the person learn, right? um That's why we are in the planet of trial and expiation, and we're gonna still be living this type of environment for many centuries, I think. You know, is the challenge. What else, Johnny? Any comment?
No, I
So,
think what I think is this is gonna happen as it has been happening
yes,
in for centuries and centuries.
exactly.
And this is the way we learn. You
Yeah,
know, you don't agree with something, you tell, and but you have to respect the others
yeah,
into the point that I prefer the disagreement than
condoning, right?
yeah, no, a false behavior. Oh
Mhm.
yes, I agree with you, with Alba, with
Yeah,
this, with that, but I'm not being true.
yeah,
Okay, so it's something like I lament, I regret that, because I think that is a loss of energy.
yeah,
It
yeah.
doesn't
That's true.
solve in everything, but the other person was dissatisfied. The person showed how she thinks
Yeah,
or how he thinks. However, it's still we are not going to solve the problem.
yeah.
For example, that society has with politicians or family or
Mm,
whatever.
yeah,
But it's part of
the whole thing.
the whole how do you say engine. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? And so it is hard. It is hard.
yeah, yeah.
It is. But what can you do? I prefer. I agree with Luigi, for example, but um, I'm not going to fix it. I'm not going to
Yeah.
fix it, unfortunately. So yes, I don't agree with this or that. However, there is nothing I can do. I cannot just, because there is also the fact that
Yeah.
the media is
Exactly.
compromised nowadays.
Yeah.
Media is compromised. They are sold. They are bought. You know what I mean? There are lots of money involved. So am I going to lose my energy with all that? Unfortunately, for what?
Yeah,
It's
and
not going to solve
I think
anything.
you said something very interesting, Johnny, and it's part of this conversations that you need to put your energy in things that will
We can
keep your
change.
health
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
change. Yes, because okay, let's go back to Jesus. So Jesus lived in a situation that compared to what we live nowadays, because nowadays we have laws that trying to help, is not perfect. I agree with you. Corruption is everywhere.
Even Paul, he was against Jesus. And then at the end of the road, he said, oh my God, I was the one that was wrong. So it's part of the whole learning
And
thing.
and the way he did was instead he used the tools that he was using before, he
Change completely.
changed
Yeah.
his tools.
But this is the human being. This
That's
is
the human
mankind.
beings.
We are like that. Sometimes you don't see things
Yeah.
that for others are clear, but for you it's not. So one
And that's
day
why
on
it's
the road,
important.
you're gonna
Yeah.
conclude.
And that's what's important. We work in this, respect, and then okay, I don't agree, I see this way, I think what you say is perfect. This is like a constructive conversation. um and sometimes we may lose a little bit, like, our behavior, but at the end of the day we are not killing, like, cancel people, we are just disagreeing, right? But we need to think that in the long run, the difference that we have, we need to take the difference and take as a opportunity, right? Okay, why I'm feeling this, why someone say something that I don't agree, but let me give a second look in the situation. Let me see why that people come from with that explanation, right? Because, for example, I will give an example here. If you are not born here, and if you're an immigrant come here, take some time for you to try to understand what people do things different, right? I'll give an example, very silly, right? So I grew up eating, corn like that was sour in Brazil, right? So when coming here, it's like sweet corn. I was like, doesn't match, right? Because you grow up in a culture. So, and then you need to study the culture, and what that corn comes from, how they harvest that. So it's different. So the same thing happened, right? So we have that initial like repulsion, but if you open your mind and open yourself to see the other side of the situation, you're gonna see that both sides trying to do the best. talk to someone from the left, you talk to someone from the right. And the right never is going to agree with the left and vice versa. That is very difficult. But here's the thing. Instead you go to left and right, go up. Seek the answer up, not the left and the right. Because the left and the right have partial truth.
But the truth is gonna come.
If
That's
you,
gonna show.
what is your reference? The left or the right?
Yeah.
Tell me the reference. If you take a
No,
reference,
I
the
put
left,
everything in God's hand because
yes,
I cannot say
yes,
who is the right or the. Sometimes that's why we say
exactly,
don't interfere
exactly.
with marriage relationship because at the end you are gonna be bad, and those people that are fighting are gonna be
So it's very
not
important. It's very important. That's why in spiritism we don't take side. And I'm sorry, people may not like it that we need to take side. I don't take side. Try to see the best. If I call myself spiritist, I need to read what is in the spirit's book, the end of the spirit's book. Very, and if I find it, I'm gonna read again. So, and this is the proposal. I mean, we may have some sympathy for one side, the other, but you cannot take side. If you go
or
to the
put
put
your
your
hand
hand,
in the fire because of
yes,
this or that.
yes, yes. And guess what? I don't have my glasses. I'm not gonna be able to read. But it's at the end of it's the conclusion of the Spirit's book. When Saint Augustine says, let me see, uh, and he mentioned very clear about spirit is human have okay, well, God. Let me see, God. Okay. Da, 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 da. Okay, I cannot read, cannot see. But anyway, so is a paragraph at the end of the conclusion that mentioned that spiritists should not be involved in now we don't want to bring any political discussion this percent. That's not appropriate. That's respect. Okay, but outside you can discuss about it. We can vote. We can give our feedback. That's normal. But we cannot engage in the duels because I have this position, you have that position. We need to find that you said common ground, right? So, guys, thank you so much for those that are watching us here. We approach the end of our discussion here. I hope you have enjoyed this discussion about dueling. Is this can bring a lot of controversy because people take a little bit like feel emotional about their point of view, and that's fine. We are humans. We are humans, right? So nobody's sent here. There is no angel here, unless the mentors that are here for us, they are one that is supporting, protecting us. But so we're gonna stop here now our stream, and we will move to our passes.